so we're a local arts agency, so we try to advocate for the arts in a lot of different areas. And, of course, education is where there's a lot of room. I mean, we get one chance a year with the legislature as far as budget goes, but we get opportunities all year long with the school district and with parents and teachers here locally, and then also with legislators during session. So there's a lot of opportunity, there's a lot of material, there's good statistics out there to support our argument, and so we try to use it as much as we can. We're a very loosely organized group. In fact, I wouldn't say we're really organized at all. What I have done in the past that seems to have worked is we take advantage of opportunities where children are actually doing like recitals and performances at a district level, and we go and MC and give statistics about the impact of the arts on their academic performance. We use the other local arts groups as partners in advocating, and I have a 25-member board, and we have a membership of a few hundred to our own presenting series. So we send out e-blasts and emails and requests and calls to action when things pop up that need attention. Probably the most effective thing we ever did was there was a district-wide concert called Save the Music a few years ago, and the teachers in the elementary schools organized it, and parents came, and they had printed letters to the governor, asking him to, save the arts in schools and not let the PE credit, push the arts out of the way, those requirements. Mm-hmm. And so, we took like a ream of paper, signed letters from parents. I took it to Tallahassee with a black ribbon on it and left it at the governor's desk. But, real hard copy things to leave there that must have made some kind of impact. Of course, we did calling and email as well, but that kids' concert and getting the parents to sign seemed to have been really effective, kind of a grassroots, taking advantage of a thing that was going on to use as an advocacy tool. Mm-hmm. I was invited to Steve Sutherland. He's our U.S. Congressman. Uh-huh. I was invited to his office by his aide to talk to him about the arts. And, of course, they're conservative Republicans, maybe even beyond that, maybe even Tea Partiers. So what I did in this piece was I took these quotes in the pink on the top left-hand corner
right
from Ronald
here.
Reagan, what he said about the arts. As they like Ronald Reagan. And I say they. I mean, I'm an enigma. I'm a registered Republican who works for the arts. So things that I thought would appeal to the person I was talking to. So I did these Ronald Reagan quotes. And then Kevin Spacey apparently was on Hardball's Chris Matthews. Mm-hmm. It is Abraham Lincoln and Winston Churchill, and talks about just the minimal amount that's being asked for at the federal level to fund the arts when it's compared to the national, budget, mm-hmm. and the return on investment. Kevin Spacey did this whole thing. That whole first page is a quote from him in that interview. Mm-hmm. And then I really didn't want to overwhelm this legislative aide, and we were coming from two totally opposite perspectives on the arts. So, I just want to make like 3 points, and the first one was the intrinsic and extrinsic value of the arts in arts education. So I gave them all the test scores. In the gray box is kind of like my logical conclusion, if more kids stay in school, and studies show that 1 out of 10 dropouts go to some prison system as opposed to 1 in 35 graduates, then by extension this is the right investment at that, when those kids are in school still. Mm-hmm. And from a budget perspective, it ought to stem, expenses in the prison system, which is another concern. I mean, the state's got a lot more to worry about than just us, and if we show them how, we can have a positive impact on another area of concern for them, mm-hmm. We can make those leaps and think about it, and don't count on them to think about it because they're not going to. Then I did this STEM theme thing, if people are familiar. I just sat through the FSU annual dinner, and the governor was the speaker, and he was all about STEM, so I'm trying to get in his office to fuss with him about that. And then the next point I wanted to make was that the arts are a place where people from both sides of the aisle can come together, and this is my membership list for Bay Arts Alliance, people that come to my series, and if you live locally, you would know that some of these people are extreme conservatives, some of them are liberals. All these people come together to support our cause. So it's an easy place where people can cross the aisle. And it's a nominal expense when you look at the benefit of what the arts do. Even if they're patronizing their constituency, look who they are. Vote yes for the NEA expenses and arts education expenses, because all these people care about it. They're supporting the organization, and that's what we're about.
Mm-hmm.
So they need to consider who all these people are locally that are voting for them.
Mm-hmm.
And, of course, it ran over into the next page because I didn't have enough room on one page to put all our membership.
Right.
And my board of directors, which is like the next page down.
Okay, down. Okay.
I think it goes down. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There it is. Yeah, so there's the rest of my membership and my board of directors, and our local politicians know who these people are. And I took a quote from, Daniel Pink, and then I did the Louis Armstrong thing from Americans for the Arts,
yeah.
to ask for more, which is funny. They're all about STEM. It's like, well, they may not care that kids don't know who Louis Armstrong is, so that means they also don't know who Neil Armstrong is. So nothing's happening, as far as technology history, science history, any better by leaving the arts out, because you may know the last name, but if you don't know the first name, you don't know either one of them. You have no cultural literacy and historical, literacy about technology or the arts. And so I was just trying to show him, these how all these things affect each other. And then at the bottom, that last statement was to tell them that, and I meant fiscally engaged, really. If you want to have an influence on, how things go in a certain sector, then you need to pay fiscal attention to it. They need to stay engaged, invested, or they're not relevant to us. And I told a state senator, his aide, maybe a year or two ago, I said, really, I look at my grant applications as advocacy because it's not enough money for the hoops I'm jumping through. Yeah, I could go find a sponsor and get this without having to bend, at every turn to try and deal with a state. It financially is not worth it, but from an advocacy perspective, it's very important. And I figure it's my charitable contribution to actually have to go and try to make an appointment with these guys. That if they think I'm irrelevant, guess what? I think they're irrelevant. And I wasn't trying to be antagonistic, but I basically told him, if you have no place for me, in your area of concern, then why should, I have a place for you in mine? I mean, we're going to have to do this without you. We're going to do it without you.
Yeah.
And they want influence. That's why they're there. They may be altruistic, but that kind of goes away pretty quick after they get involved with politics.
Right.
So, I mean, we just cut to the chase and got down to brass tacks about this. But what was funny, though, when I came away, and he called me. I didn't call him. So I went to his office to tell him all of this, and they don't, think there should be arts funding. And I said, a lot of people my age and older, maybe when they hear NEA, if they're conservative, they think Maplethorpe, which to me, and a lot of people, is a black eye on the organization. It was too controversial, and it really, I think, did some damage as far as funding for the future for the organization. Of course, he didn't know what that was, and so I decided to let him educate himself. I didn't explain it to him. He didn't know what Maplethorpe was. He also didn't know what the word enigmatic meant, so I figured, because he probably doesn't have to deal with being that. So we had this conversation. He invited me to his office. Then what he asked me was, do you want any help getting grant funding, which is funny from somebody who thinks that there ought not to be public funding for the arts. But they know where their power is and where their influence is, and they were offering it because of the small community and the high profile that the organization has here. And then he asked me, are there any cultural boards that they would like me to make a recommendation for me to serve on? They're looking for regional influence, and if they can use an arts person to get more influence for their district or region, they're willing to make the appointment because, I'm not sure they necessarily care so much about the arts, but they surely don't mind having somebody from Bay County be on the, some arts council, at a higher level than just locally.
I see. They wanted to recommend someone from Bay County to sit on a higher board.
Yes, and he was asking me if I wanted to do it.
I see.
he was like, are there any boards you want to sit on? I was like, what? No. I got plenty to do. I mean, well, that's what my first thought was no, but then I thought, yeah. But he was trying to offer me what he could from a political perspective.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm gonna meet with him again, and now that I know a little better what he's after, and when you come away and you think I should have said this or I should have said that,
right?
Leave it open to go back again. He really didn't shut me down when I talked about the nominal amount of funding at the state or federal level for the arts and what a difference it can make. Because the people locally, it means a lot to them locally. They can do a lot with the money and the programming. And I also mentioned to him that at both levels they're trying to mandate curriculum. I said, and if the system is just our students are failing, and you're mandating and you're wiping out these programs, does it ever occur to you that the ones you're wiping out are the ones that would keep you from failing? If you go back and look, this is not where you need to cut, and you guys are not the authorities on what curriculum ought to be. You need to back up and leave it to somebody who's in education and who has done the studies and can give you support for the idea that this a little bit more liberal or classical curriculum is what you give students an edge. That we've lost our mojo if we lose our creative and liberal arts programs.
Yeah. Well, Jennifer, you gave him the what's what on that. So I just think, what I heard you saying, and I love this, and it's so important, going back to this very first thing. You selected quotes that would appeal to the person you were talking to. So you really tailored your whole message to the audience that you were working there. And then, so you said when you were working with parents, you had a letter ready for them to sign, and you appealed to the parents on the level of taking care of their students and making sure their students had the arts education that they wanted. So I think that's an important approach.
And it's an emotional time when they're watching their kids sing in a concert, and if they're prone to being emotional about it, that's the perfect time. Kind of like church, just when you give the altar call is when they're ready to cry and come down the aisle, get them to sign the paper, because you have to evangelize your constituency and grab at a time when they're emotionally open to doing something that's not an emotional thing. Advocacy isn't for most people because they're not engaged in it like people that are in the profession, like you and Sharon and arts teachers. These are people that it's not front of mind. So you catch them when they're kids singing.
So you hit them, you hit them with the intellectual arguments. You hit them in their comfort zone and then took them out of it, and then you hit them with the emotions of the students and their best interests. So you go, girl.
I hope it's useful. And everybody knows this stuff. I mean, everybody saw the cohort study, and you've read Daniel Pink. It's just, I think, putting it in a format that's concise for whoever your audience is. You can find quotes from anybody about the arts that would, if I'd put, what is it, somebody with Huffington on the end of the thing, it probably wouldn't have worked. But if I put Ronald Reagan and Chris Matthews and Abraham Lincoln, then that's the guy I'm talking to.
Right.
So.